Hello and welcome to China Tonight. I'm Stan Grant. On the program, China commits to joint military drills with Russia. Why are these fish being tested for COVID? And Jubensha, the latest craze to take off in China.
It's you! You're the murderer!
But first, just weeks after Australia raised the cash rate for the fourth straight month, a move echoed by many other countries, China has just done the opposite. Now, the decision to cut rates is another sign the Chinese economy is facing a unique set of problems. A combination of persistent COVID lockdowns and a property slump has meant growth expectations were not met last month. A gloomy picture for the world's second largest economy. And again, unlike countries like Australia, seeing low unemployment rates, the picture for job seekers in China is looking pretty grim, especially for young people. And as Wenlei Ma reports, this is causing some interesting manifestations at the intersection of society and pop culture.
This is Jackson Yee. A 22-year-old actor, singer, and one of the most famous faces in China. Yee has been in the public eye since he was 5 years old. He's been on TV shows and part of music groups, most notably the boy band TF Boys, which he joined when he was 12. Last year, he was a lead in the battle at Lake Changjing, a war epic that went on to become the highest-grossing Chinese movie of all time, and second at the 2021 global box office.
He is famous, he has a very large fan base. He actually draw a lot of attention by being, a relatively representative figure in his generation.
He's no plucky ingenue scoring his first big break, so it was big news when he nabbed his most recent starring role. A lifetime job at China's Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security at the National Theatre. Okay, it's not exactly a blockbuster, but this role is highly coveted. It's a government position. Civil service gigs often come with prestige, housing subsidies, and a guaranteed paycheck, sometimes for life. Every year, millions take exams as part of the hiring process for these jobs. But if Yee was expecting a standing ovation or even a hearty congratulations, he was disappointed.
That's a privilege.
The money they make in a day is more than people can make in their lifetime, but now they are competing for jobs with everyday people.
The plot twist in this drama? Jackson got this job when youth unemployment in China was at a whopping 20%.
Everyone is at risk with the economy slowing down, but he uses his privilege for a job.
He took a job that earns thousands of dollars a month, which other people couldn't get, even after studying for years.
The public servants entrance enrollment exam is a highly competitive exam, and a lot of people already very doubtful about the fairness of the society. So the public servants entry exam are seen by a lot of so-called ordinary people as the bottom line of fairness.
He is a celebrity and again an easy target for people's anger and young people's anger towards unemployment. Why should someone as famous as he is with a lot more opportunities get this job?
Young Chinese job seekers aged 16 to 24 are faring worse than their peers in other major economies, in large part due to COVID-0 policies and new regulations on private enterprise. In fact, one survey found that of the 11 million Chinese students who graduated from college this year, fewer than 15% had secured job offers by mid-April, and they are expected to earn 12% less than the class of 2021. Civil service jobs like Yee's appointment are more popular now in this economic environment. Even Hu Xijing, the former editor-in-chief of Communist Party tabloid Global Times, says Yee's appointment was not well-timed.
Due to these factors, people have seen Yee and the others joining the theatre as taking up ordinary people's much-desired jobs via unfair methods.
There's a lot more competition, the economy is contracting, and the situation just looks unpalatable for so many young Chinese. Jackson is just emblematic of sort of the deeper worries and anxieties of young Chinese.
精心筹划数月，不因为事事皆在掌握，逃走自卑。
The blowback from Yi's appointment became so intense that he released a detailed statement of the hoops he had to jump through as part of the application process.
I met all the examination requirements and complied with the recruitment process of the National Theatre.
But it wasn't enough to fight the perception he'd been given special treatment, and within the fortnight, he withdrew from the post.
Youth unemployment rates continue to rise. So, celebrities or wealthy tech entrepreneurs are just the tip of the iceberg, and people vent their anger because they're easy to grasp. There's a face in which they can direct their anger towards on social media. So I think a lot of Chinese celebrities would hope that they don't become target of audience anger, national anger, and be targets of Chinese government anger in any way.
I think the incident will affect Jason Yi's entertaining business for a while. Will there be more profound policy change or social change? I'm very pessimistic about it.
Jackson Yi may have just been the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the whole episode exposed the fraying seams of the once booming Chinese economy. If that same public anger finds a bigger target than a hapless celebrity, the government may need to start worrying.
And Wenlei Ma joins me now. It's not just Jackson Yi, is it? We've seen other celebrities as well getting this sort of public ire in recent years, like a cancel culture of China.
Yeah, there is. A lot of people have been, victim to it. People like Deng Shuang, people like Zhou Wei. It all kind of ties into this idea of excess consumption and privilege. These are actors and celebrities who earn hundreds of millions of dollars compared to the average person who is, a teensy part of that. And they see them flaunting all of their wealth and getting all this special privilege. And when the economy's not booming anymore, people need a target.
And the backlashes online, like you see in other parts of the world, but they're enormous, aren't they?
Yeah, because it's quite focused. It is one of the very few areas of public discourse that isn't censored usually. So it's quite safe to kind of go after a celebrity for all your frustration and anxieties without seeming like what you're actually criticising is maybe government policy or, just your day-to-day, which goes back to the government. So celebrities get this targeted, kind of concentrated backlash, which I guess in the end it could lead to something like fewer people taking creative risks in what are generally creative industries, which, we don't know what that's going to look like in 3 to 5 years, what the fallout from this really is going to be.
Wenlei, thank you.
Thank you.
Now for more news from China. Joining me is Yvonne Yong. Yvonne, China's record-breaking summer heat continues.
Hi Stan, there is no relief in sight. China's weather agency says nearly half of the country is experiencing extreme heat. Above average temperatures have persisted for months and they're starting to impact major waterways. In the southwestern region of Chongqing, as many as 66 rivers across 34 counties have dried up. Authorities are mobilising special teams to try and save crops from scorching temperatures.
春天这是噻，你看嘛，它无法长了噻。主要是气温高了，把那个烤起去了，慢慢都要把烤，都要烤死啊！
没有，确实没有，没有见过，确实没有见过。不是我，还比我大的都没见过。
Chongqing last week registered an all-time high temperature of 45 degrees Celsius and a record 11 consecutive days above 40. The region's infrastructure and emergency services have come under increasing strain too, with firefighters on high alert as mountain and forest blazes erupt across the region. Elsewhere, the power grid is buckling as demand for electricity soars. Energy-intensive industries have been shut down in Sichuan province after water reservoirs used to generate hydropower ran low. But it's not just the heat wreaking havoc. Flooding caused by heavy rainfall in the western province of Qinghai has killed at least 17 people, with more still missing. Now, China's Meteorological Administration says climate change is to blame for the extreme weather and says this is the country's longest period of sustained high temperatures since records began in 1961.
And China and Russia look to be deepening cooperation even further.
Yes, China's Defence Ministry last week announced its troops will travel to Russia to take part in joint military exercises at the end of the month, along with Belarus, India, Mongolia and Tajikistan. In a statement, China's Defence Ministry said the aim is to deepen practical and friendly cooperation with the armies of participating countries, enhance the level of strategic collaboration and strengthen the ability to respond to various security threats. The ministry also said China's participation was unrelated to the current international and regional situation. In August last year, Russia and China held joint exercises involving more than 10,000 troops. Under President Xi Jinping, Beijing and Moscow have grown increasingly close. Earlier this year, China and Russia agreed to a no-limits strategic partnership.
Zhou Bo is a Senior Fellow at the Centre for International Security and Strategy at Tsinghua University. He was a Senior Colonel in the People's Liberation Army and Director of the Centre for International Security Cooperation at the Ministry of National Defence. He joins me now from Beijing. It's good to have you with us. Can we take it from these military exercises that we are seeing a deepening of this alliance between Russia and China?
No, I think it's the wrong description because this kind of relationship, however close it might seem, is not a relationship of alliance because China and Russia are just strategic partners, but it's not a relationship of alliance. Yes, it is deepening.
Zhou Bo, can I come in there? It is a bit more than just strategic partners. There is a no-limits pact, which was announced before the Beijing Winter Olympics. We've subsequently seen the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We've seen China step up its military exercises, war games over Taiwan and increase threats there. And now these exercises, that would tell us that this is getting beyond just a strategic alliance, wouldn't it?
Well, many people, especially in the West, are hooked up with this word unlimited. But to use that word, that means we would just make great efforts to develop our relationship. But in the document where this very word is mentioned, actually, it's also mentioned that this relationship is not directed against any third parties. So actually, in this document, it is also mentioned that it is not a aligned relationship. So coming back to your questions, China's joint exercises with Russia is nothing new. It actually started in 2003, and it's also seen bilaterally or multilaterally within Shanghai Cooperation Organization.
But it is increasing, isn't it? I mean, this is the point. If you look at the timing of this and the more frequency of these activities and the size of these activities, there is an argument that it's increasing, isn't it?
No, it's not increased. It's regularized because it has been like this more or less for ever since 2003.
Why these exercises? Who are you preparing for conflict with?
As a military, you should be prepared for all situations. And this is found in all countries. It is found in NATO. So with Russia, of course, we too are great countries in terms of size, in terms of our strengths. And we definitely would find it necessary to strengthen this kind of cooperation. And for China, it's particularly useful in that China actually has enjoyed peace since 1979.
But Russia isn't. Russia's at war with Ukraine. That would lend a more sinister edge to these exercises, wouldn't they? You're carrying out military exercises with a country that is invading and carrying out war against another country. That changes the nature of these exercises, surely.
I don't think so, because it was done before, and it actually is the most interesting part for me is how much forces actually Russia could use in such kind of joint exercises, because certainly they are somewhat short of manpower in the war in Ukraine. So
But Zhou Bo, the point here I'm trying to get is that China is assisting Russia's military capacity and its capacity to carry out conflict at a time when Russia is already making war on Ukraine. You are assisting now directly Russia's ability to make war, surely.
No, I don't think we're assisting the capability because...
But that's what the exercises are about, aren't they? To increase your capacity.
No, I don't think so, because this is a kind of a natural exercise. So we are also learning from this kind of exercise to enhance our own capabilities. So in terms of Russia's capability, whether that's enough for Ukraine or not, there are many doubts. And in the beginning, the they don't seem to fight quite well. So there are plenty of lessons for them to...
So you're helping them to fight better. This is the point. And the point I'm trying to make here, Zhou Bo, is that you're learning from the Russians as the Russians are learning from you. Russia is making war in Ukraine and China is threatening war against Taiwan. Wouldn't countries in the region and other countries look at this and see not just a deepening alliance, but a more aggressive one?
But I'm happy you mentioned Taiwan, because that is totally another issue. And you know how it actually was triggered by Nancy Pelosi's visit. This, of course, is aftermath of her visit. This is not liked by many people in the government of the United States, but she actually is the very person that has changed status quo.
But the fact of the matter is that China has been threatening to use force against Taiwan if necessary and has stepped up those military exercises. I want to get back to the Vostok exercises. Can't we take away from this that this indicates, as Russia makes war, as China threatens war, as the two of you prepare each other to make war and to increase your capability for that this is a more aggressive alliance?
I think you are putting too many things all together. This is certainly not the case, because the Taiwan issue is China's domestic issue. The war between Ukraine and Russia is, of course, between two sovereign states. So these are totally different things. And China certainly would use its own strengths to talk to these two countries. And it's in our own interest to see Europe come into peace as well, because otherwise China's many interests would suffer. China's Belt Road.
Why doesn't Xi Jinping, in that case, if you can carry out these military exercises, why does Xi Jinping not pick up the phone to his friend Vladimir Putin, and that's how the relationship is being described as friends, and say it's time to end the war?
Well, I'm not, in his shoe to tell him what he got to do, but I believe that China's position is already self-evident. First of all, China is not providing Russia any military assistance, as widely speculated, and that shows China's position of neutrality or even impartiality in this case.
Zhou Bo, can I just finish with an observation about India? India, of course, is a member of the Quad, and the Quad between Australia, Japan, the United States and India is seen as a curb on Chinese influence or assertiveness in the region. Why is India also a part of these exercises?
If you look at the Quad, it just has a military element of a military exercise called Malabar, and that's it. India is not an ally of the three other countries, so India's position definitely is very important, because India's relationship with Russia actually is also very good. It could be said even better than China's relationship with Russia, because it actually was non-stop even during the Cold War. So this kind of good relationship between India and Russia is well known, so it is understandable.
Zhou Bo, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. It's always good to have you on the program, sir. Thank you again.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you very much.
Now for what's making news on social media platforms, Weibo and WeChat. Yvonne, China is committed to reversing the falling birth rate, and now another policy shift in the area has got people talking online.
Yes, Beijing has vowed to ensure unmarried women can access maternity benefits, a move that's been welcomed by many. Unmarried mothers have long complained that officials in some regions demand marriage certificates before they can receive benefits. Well, the news became the second highest trending topic on Weibo during the week.
Reproductive rights are basic human rights. They're not tied to marriage.
It's good to bring maternity benefits back to the women who give birth.
The baby is born from the womb, not the marriage certificate.
Some even shared their own personal stories too.
We know people in high-risk zones are forced to undergo COVID tests in China, but officials in Fujian province have gone a step further to try to stamp out an outbreak there.
Authorities in the coastal city of Xiamen must be worried about COVID being carried in fish, because not only do fishermen have to undergo a PCR test when they return to shore, but apparently their catch does as well. A bizarre video of medical workers performing tests on fish has gone viral and it's been widely ridiculed. On Weibo, one user joked that the Pacific Ocean would be declared a risk zone if a fish tests positive. And it's reportedly not just fish, but crabs and shrimp too. Similar tests have been carried out during outbreaks in Shanghai and more recently on the island of Hainan. It's not yet known if any fish have tested positive, and it might be hard to track down their close contacts if they do, Stan.
Indeed, Yvonne, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Now, speaking of Hainan Island, we spoke last week on the show about tourists being trapped on the island as they battle a COVID outbreak. Well, now case numbers are starting to come down, but not everyone is complaining about having to stay a little longer than planned. China Tonight spoke to a holidaymaker on the island.
My name is Pamela, but my friends call me Pammy. This is our kind of annual ghost trip to Sanya. But this trip definitely is something that we never expected. We felt something is getting a little bit more serious on the 5th of August. And people are trying to leave. The shops are closing. I remember there was, when we have dinner in one restaurant in the village, and suddenly it was asked to close. And they asked the customers to evacuate as soon as possible. And slowly, the village itself started to close down. We start to see that all our flights are start to cancel. So my group of girls are pretty chilled. So half of us can actually work from anywhere. We don't need to be in the office or in a fixed spot. On the 19th, there was new policy again. And so they banned tourists and everybody from going to the beach. But the wave came in yesterday. So a lot of people really could not help and they went down. So I was like on my balcony. I woke up early. I was like, wow, good for you guys. But right now, the situation is that you need to face quarantine times upon arrival, regardless whichever cities you're going to. I'm probably planning to stay. I'm looking around, stay for another 2 or 3 more weeks and see how the policy change. If the policy change for the receiving cities, right, I might leave. We're trying to keep each other entertained at all times, and also trying to pick up new hobbies like serving and trying out new things. We felt like must well take that outfits. Things why not?
Video games might be one of the most popular pastimes in China. You'd think that thanks to recent COVID lockdowns, the industry would be booming. Instead, it seems the opposite is true. In fact, revenues fell in the first half of this year, and that's the only time it's happened since data started being collected in 2008. Joining me is the China Tonight gaming correspondent, Angharad Yeo. What's going on here?
So China had a ban on video game licenses from about July to April last year, which meant that no new titles could be released. So what that meant was about 700 titles got released last year, compared to about 9,000 that got released in 2017. And of course, we've also seen a high rate of youth unemployment, which has meant less disposable income or less confidence to spend disposable income.
So what does that mean for the sector as a whole?
Unfortunately, thousands of companies have shut down because they just don't have the sales to sustain themselves. In fact, Tencent, which is one of the biggest tech firms, saw a decline in their sales and they showed a loss for the first time ever. It's also created space for other pastimes to pop up, such as Jubensha or script murder, which has absolutely exploded in popularity. So I went to check it out. Then you round the corner and see a dead body.
It's you! You're the murderer!
In China, young people are now choosing this as their favorite pastime. Known as Jubensha or script murder, these interactive murder mystery games have exploded in China.
I guess what makes it popular is it's kind of a really good game for social. in China.
It's an immersive role-playing game typically run by a dungeon master, or DM. You and your friends get dressed up, assume a character, follow a script, and use your wits to figure out who amongst you is the killer. I think it was you. If it sounds a whole lot like Dungeons & Dragons or an extreme version of Cluedo, that's because it kinda is. In fact, live-action role-playing, or LARP, has a long history in the West, but is relatively new in China. And Chinese players have absolutely taken it to the next level. While in Australia you might need to organise your LARP sessions on your own, Jubensha is different in that they have stores with their own scripts and DMs. Plus, they've got meticulously designed rooms to play in.
You are trying to be someone else, so you have to introduce yourself first. And sometimes, let's say, I say, "Oh, I'm your father," and then people start laughing, and you talk with each other, and it's a social game.
It's the collaborative work. You have to work with a team and sometimes communicate with other players as well. So it's really interactive and also somehow caters to these generations' needs for socializing.
The fad took off in 2018 after a reality show called Who's the Murderer became a national hit. According to Chinese media, there are now over 30,000 purpose-built Jubensha venues in the country. It's the third most popular offline activity after the gym and the cinema. Tony loved Jubensha so much, he actually started a venue with his friends in 2019.
We have 5 rooms, and we hire some dungeon masters. We invite players to our store, and we have different choices of Juben, which is kind of the story, and they can choose what they like. We have over 300 dresses. Most of them are ancient Chinese, but some of our clothes are ancient Europe.
Tony says the key to a great Jubensha game is all in the script.
Everything about the person you want to be, their information is all included in the script.
Jubensha script writing is now a lucrative business in China. Ing-wen Ma runs a business that develops Jubensha scripts and productions to sell to venues and to run special events.
必须是具备悬疑感的。我们的一个好的剧本是必须具备有一个立意的，就是我玩完了这个本子之后，我需要知道我要让玩家获得什么，他想要在这里面得到什么样的一个人生体会，所以我就讲一个他的那个文字端的一个授权费用吧，基本上是在1万到10万之间都会有浮动的，根据我们的那个剧本的一个质量不同会去浮动。
But it's these scripts that have caught the attention of the authorities. In January, the Shanghai local government banned Jubensha content that promoted pornography, extreme violence, and anything that threatens national security.
The main concerns obviously is around the content. It's all about killing, it's all about murder. So it's just inevitable there are some things just quite violent, and those content are deemed not healthy for young children or young people.
The government asked us to make a note of all our scripts. We have to give that to the regulation department. They will do the regulation. We just do what they ask us to do. I think it's pretty fair because some of the scripts, they actually contain some really bad things, can be more regulated. So, it's better and it's healthier for the whole Jubensha sector.
As Jubensha grows, the games become more complex and varied.
I love this game. I hope in the future it can be the same as like the movie cinemas and the internet cafes, new way of entertainment.
The rapidly growing industry is projected to be worth $5 billion this year. I guess murder mysteries are big business. And you know what? I'm the murderer.
No.
Yeah. No, that was a red herring.
And that's all for this week. Next week on the show, the race to make motorsports popular in China. I'm Stan Grant. Have a great night.